Welcome to the Historical Fiction Story Podcast. We're diving into two warriors today.
Oh, this one's great.
It is. It's got action and humor, but it's also surprisingly thought-provoking.
Yeah, given the whole death thing.
Exactly. It all starts with these two enemies, a red warrior under an oak tree and a blue warrior under a willow, both mortally wounded.
Neither one able to finish the fight.
Right, and you'd expect some final, desperate struggle.
But instead,
Red warrior pulls out parchment and ink.
and he starts writing a death poem.
I mean, talk about unexpected.
Really makes you wonder what's going through his head at that point.
Acceptance, defiance, a last grasp at meaning.
Or maybe just boredom.
Maybe. So his first haiku, it's pretty
Yeah.
simple. A red setting sun clears away the ashen trees. It is a bright day. And then he even adds katsu at the end.
Like he's dropping the mic or something.
Right. But the blue warrior, not impressed at all.
Oh, he tears it apart, points out technical flaws, lack of depth. You name it.
He is not holding back,
He has a very specific idea of what good poetry should be.
like a poetry snob.
Kind of. He wants it concise, original, impactful.
And this is where it gets hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
These two warriors, bleeding out, start arguing about poetry, like they're at a slam or something.
It's ridiculous and brilliant.
It really shows how human these characters are.
Yeah.
Even facing death, they want to create and be recognized.
The Blue Warrior's critiques are actually pretty insightful, though. He says, "One does not build a bridge to wind around the river, but to cross it directly. Beauty derives from the power in what is said with few words."
Wow.
Pretty deep for a dying warrior.
It is. So the Red Warrior, obviously stung by the criticism,
Try it again.
his second poem is a straight-up diss.
Aimed right at the Blue Warrior.
It goes, "My blue enemy speaks as though he knows what's wise. What an idiot."
Subtlety is not his strong suit.
Nope. And the Blue Warrior, predictably, he's not a fan.
He sees it as a wasted opportunity. Like, come on, man, you're dying. Reflect on something meaningful.
He's disappointed almost.
Yeah, like he sees the potential, but the Red Warrior just isn't getting it.
And it keeps going. The Red Warrior writes a third haiku.
This one's even worse, technically speaking.
Red sun sets across the forest and casts shadows across my bloody gown and katsu.
Like, come on, what happened to concise?
And of course,
The Blue Warrior points out every flaw, the repetition, the unnecessary words, that katsu. Again.
he's like a teacher with a frustrating student.
Exactly. Finally, the Red Warrior snaps.
He's like, my poems can be whatever I want, insults, odes, love letters. Who are you to judge?
He's clinging to this idea of creative freedom.
But it feels more defensive than genuine, you know?
Yeah, and that's the turning point.
The Blue Warrior challenges him directly.
He says, it could be, but perhaps it should also be good. Be original and be concise.
Oof, that's gotta hurt.
And he even suggests that the Red Warrior's trying to steal his poetic thunder.
Oh, no, he didn't?
Oh, yes, he did. You can tell it gets to the Red Warrior.
So he decides to write one final poem.
This time about something he truly loves.
If you're interested in more stories like this one, you should definitely check out Historical Fiction Story Collection.
And this is where we see a real shift in the story.
Things get kind of peaceful.
Yeah, there's a sense of acceptance as he writes this last haiku. If I loved the moon, why only look where sun shines? Night brings beauty, too.
It's beautiful. You can feel him letting go of the anger, the frustration.
He's found peace, not just with death, but with himself.
He breathes his last.
But then
There's a twist.
the Blue Warrior, he crawls over to the Red Warrior's body and takes the poem.
Wait, what?
Yeah, drags himself back to his willow and signs his own name on it.
He steals it.
Well,
Is it an act of respect? Or just selfish?
it's definitely open to interpretation.
Maybe he was so moved by the poem that he wanted to be associated with it.
Even in death.
Or maybe he just wanted to leave a legacy.
Something more profound than his own warrior's tale, right?
I mean, he was so focused on the technical aspects of poetry.
Maybe he recognized the raw emotion in this final haiku.
Something his own poems were missing.
Could be.
Or maybe, in their final moments, their rivalry became something else.
Strange kind of connection.
Bound by poetry, even as they fought to the death.
And in taking the poem, he's acknowledging that connection.
Even if it means blurring the lines of authorship, it makes you think about the nature of art.
Who owns a creation, especially when the creator's gone?
Does recognition matter?
Or is the art enough on its own?
And think about it practically.
How often do we encounter art ideas without knowing the real origin?
We build on what came before.
Sometimes consciously, sometimes not.
So much of history is like that.
We may never know the full story.
But that doesn't lessen the impact.
This story, it really gets us thinking about those big questions.
It's pretty amazing for such a short piece.
Humor, action, and then these profound insights.
About life, death, creativity. If you want to explore more stories like this, check out Historical Fiction Story Collection. They have a great selection.
They do. So, wrapping up our deep dive into Two Warriors,
What stands out to you?
is it the power of art, the search for meaning, or those unexpected connections we make?
I mean, the Blue Warrior, he comes across as so harsh,
Such a stickler for the rules.
but in the end, he's the one who saves the palm.
Yeah, it really challenges how you see him.
Maybe he's not so cold after all,
Maybe under all that, there's a real love for beauty.
and a desire to connect with something bigger.
Right. And the Red Warrior, too.
He goes through such a change,
Yeah, starts out angry and defensive.
but then finds that peace.
His last haiku, even if it's not perfect.
It's full of real emotion.
It's like he finds his true voice only when he's about to die.
Makes you wonder, what could we all do if we lived with that honesty?
That's a powerful thought.
It takes facing death to see the beauty in life, maybe.
Maybe. And Two Warriors, it reminds us that art can help us explore these things.
Those big emotions, big ideas.
Whether we're creating it or just experiencing it, art connects us to something larger.
Absolutely. And if you're looking for more stories, that'll get you thinking.
Check out Historical Fiction Story Collection.
They've got a fantastic selection of tales that'll transport you
At different times and places.
and leave you pondering those big questions.
They really do. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Two Warriors,
What stays with you?
is it the power of art to overcome rivalry?
The search for meaning in death? Or maybe just the unexpected ways we find connection?
Yeah,
It's a story that sticks with you, that's for sure.
it is.
And I think the best moral, if there is one,
Is to embrace those moments,
of genuine connection, of self-expression.
wherever we find them.
Well said. Thank you for listening to the Historical Fiction Story Podcast.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a captivating historical fiction story. Until then, happy reading.